All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Happy Doc. I'm super excited to have Dr. Francis Yu. Let's get started. Before we do it, though, here's the intro. Dr. Yu, how are you doing?
Yeah, I really like that intro.
How's life?
Life is fun. Life is definitely doing a lot of stuff and being doing what I want and making sure getting the most of it. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So we're going to hop into a bunch of interesting things that you've done in your physician career. But before we kind of get into that story, why did you choose medicine?
Yeah, of course. I have to remember what I wrote on all those personal statements, right? So a lot of it was definitely influenced by my family. They were immigrant parents. There they go this route. And I said, sure, I like science. I like helping people. It seems like a great way to learn what I apply what I learned, and something that's requires for me to study a lot, learn a lot, but be able to translate it into an actual practical outcome. And just I like learning, so the studying part was great. So yeah, that's the short of it. Yeah.
So basically, just a natural progression of learning. It was something that you were interested in, and then you continued to pursue that. And did you feel like as you were going through the process, this was the path for you?
So that's a interesting question because there are multiple parts to that route, right? There's the pre-med, then the actual school, and then the training, and then after the training, right? So the school was fun. You know, it's new, everything's great. Oh, another new rotation. Have to learn new things, and then residency, you have to be the doctor now and be page and do things. So that all part of it was great. The newness of it and moving through that process.
Yeah. So that part worked for you, going through the process and learning everything throughout the whole medical education route. Was there any specific parts of school itself that you found particularly challenging or difficult during your pathway?
Yeah, I realized in hindsight, I had terrible sleep to begin with, starting from when I was probably 15 or 16. And it just made my overall wellness a little bit worse, just because there's a lot of studying you have to do, a lot of things you have to go to, especially the first year. And people say, well, you study the amount of lectures you got, which meant how many hours of sleep. So it was definitely tough in terms of the attention needed to that. So there's less attention to pretty much anything else. Luckily, I was living at home with my parents. I didn't have to do all the home stuff that I know a lot of other doctors had to do.
Yeah. I mean, look, that support's huge, right? And I can tell you when you have to balance so many things at one time, especially with medical school, and as you know, the fire hydrant amount of information that's coming at you, that definitely sounds like a benefit.
Yeah.
And then so you progressed forward and you went into family medicine. And I'm also seeing in your background that you have taken on so many different fellowships and additional training. I think that's amazing. But I also understand that that's part of your path where you, at some point, it kind of sounds like you realized maybe you don't need to take on so much. So can you kind of paint the picture of, what made you pursue all the different fellowships you pursued?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it kind of goes back to when I was applying for residencies, right? I like all the rotations, but didn't love all of them, right? This was fun, but I don't see myself doing this for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So I chose the maybe the least committal residency, which was family medicine, which is you kind of get everything, but you get to work with people and the whole family. And my residency was a little bit different because there was a second training pathway built in. So I ended up being certified in family medicine and the osteopathic manipulative medicine. And then through residency and after, I said, hey, you know what? I'm kind of interested in learning different things. I don't know if I was bored or I just thought I didn't know enough. It's probably a little bit of both. So I did 300 hours of medical acupuncture training. Got certified in New York State. I did some lifestyle medicine, functional medicine training, and I also grandfathered because I had so much CME into the integrated medicine specialty and the pain medicine extra qualification. And I would say part of it was maybe I just felt unprepared to be a real doctor in the as an attending. But part of it was I just liked the learning. But I later did realize that part of the learning was a defense to actually go out and say, hey, I'm going to be the doctor now that I've trained I don't know how many years to be.
Yeah. I see that a lot, especially with business building and entrepreneurs. There's definitely that sort of imposter syndrome, and like you said, sort of there's that constant learning or getting the next certificate or the next thing instead of just doing the thing. And I've definitely seen that before, which I think is important, and it's great that you maybe recognize that in your own path. But still, with that being said, the training's really effective. Now, I'm curious, do you find that the integrative medicine and the acupuncture and the OMT, are you still using those holistic practices as a physician?
Yeah. So I kind of have to talk about part of the story to do that. After residency, I got hired as an attending, and I was doing clinical work. I was also doing work with students and residents, precepting them in the hospital, outside the hospital, giving lectures. And I eventually got the hat of being associate program director, and then a program director. And then along the way, I became vice chair of the family medicine department at the QI projects because I also had my Lean Six Sigma green belt. And basically I had, 4, 5, 6 hats. And the part of it I realized was the worst for me was the stuff I was doing in the clinical work that I never signed up for. I know that comes up a lot on your show a lot. And a lot of it was a lot of the non-medical parts of the work, right? The paperwork. Hey, I signed and faxed this over 5 times. Why am I getting a 6th time? I'm sure that you've heard it before, and people have said it before. And then what happened was I said, what about medicine do I like? And I said, hey, I like the problem solving, using everything I learned to help people, right? What I wrote in my personal statement to begin with. And the OMT, the acupuncture integrated medicine, was really the way for me to position myself as someone who, I want to sit with you and think about what's going on. What does someone else not maybe pay attention to, and do something else that someone else isn't? So I can put in my little 2 cents, and hopefully that will help the person in front of me. And I definitely had people who said, yeah, what you told me 3 months ago, I've had all these other specialists. That's what they told me after wazoos of tests afterwards. And it made me feel great that I was able to use what I learned and help out this patient. So the short version is yes, but actually do more of that now than the paperwork primary care side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that we're going to probably get to in a little bit, in terms of when you start to build your own practice, you can start to remove those pieces that are less enjoyable in the work, right? The non-clinical side, maybe parts of a company or healthcare system that aren't streamlined, things that, like you said, you didn't sign up for. And absolutely, it's just not an enjoyable thing. And on the OMT side, because I'm also a DO, one of the great things that I, sometimes will work with patients is something like headaches, right? Like someone comes with a headache, you have the skills and I have the skills to know that maybe the tension headache could be resolved with a couple of techniques, right? Like, so the direct inhibition of the traps or whatever different techniques are out there. I've, even with like, I'll give you an example with my mom. Like my mom had a crazy headache. I don't see her often. And I did a couple of OMT techniques and her headache went away when the other doctor was trying to give her Advil or what have you. Right. So it's just, I'm very happy to speak to someone else who has these skills too, because there's some results that maybe, and I'm curious, have you found like maybe there was a result with like acupuncture or OMT and someone was having like some stubborn symptoms and you just were able to get it out with some of your holistic treatments?
Oh yeah, that's definitely the most enriching parts, where they say, hey, this was going on for so long, you're the only one that has given me relief, whether temporary or permanent. And definitely with both the acupuncture and the OMT. Although nowadays I use both, whatever really is the most effective and efficient way. And yeah, like that other patient I just said, I just did a thorough structural exam. I said, hey, it's XYZ, did a technique. And later he wanted to see other specialists because he had multiple myeloma and other things. Obviously, it was a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
But he came back and said, you know what? Everybody is telling me what you told me 3-4 months ago, and you're helping me with already. Yeah.
Yeah. And right. And even like supportive care for people who have more severe diseases and those types of things, you can do a lot with that. So I think it's great to have these different potential skills in your toolbox, to be able to pull them out. I want to kind of move the conversation a little bit towards achieving physician freedom, which you wrote a whole book about this concept around achieving freedom in your life as a physician, right?
Yeah.
And so before I kind of tap into that, that the freedom side implies that there's a part of this process where you feel enslaved, right? And you feel stuck. Can you tell me a little bit about what was making you feel like you wanted to achieve your own freedom?
Yes, definitely. So going back to my story about my wearing multiple hats, right? Again, I was doing clinical medicine, precepting students, residents, vice chair of the family medicine department. I was kind of in charge of some QI projects, and I was also starting new clinics. And then I thought, you know what? Am I going to be the DIO of a gigantic hospital system? And do I want to be the master QI person? Not really. Do I want to be in this kind of clinical practice for 20, 30, 40 years? Not really. I realized I'm not saying those experiences were bad, but I realized if I kept going on that route, I'll be basically living a life or lives that really other people wanted for me. It really benefited them more than it would have benefited me. And I know physicians are very good at making sure other people are okay and over themselves. And I thought, what I am enslaved by is really what everyone else expects of me, and what their vision of what I should be like, right? This picture of the doctor. And that is something school does a lot, right? School, it's, let's say in elementary school, this person's A and this person's A. It's if you look from a distant situation, it looks the same. The same things go to medical school. Oh, this person got a whatever grade. This person got a whatever grade. Okay, they must be similarly passable. When you get a board certification, it's great. That means you're certified. You pass all these examinations and this training. But another way to look at it is, let's say I worked as a family medicine doctor and then I died or I was fired. How do they find a replacement? Oh, okay, family medicine board certified. It's just the easy way to say this is the bare minimum that I want you to be replaceable with. And that might become a little bit morbid and cynical, but it's a perspective that I think it's worth looking at. And I felt like that, replaceable. What impact am I really making? My interests, things that I want to do, what I want to spend my attention on to help people. I'm not doing enough of that. And I realized I was entrapped, but I was also entrapped by my own perspective of what was possible in life for me.
Yeah. I mean, what you just said is so powerful, and I really want to highlight that for a second, because I think what you just touched on is what a lot of people feel. A lot of people feel trapped by the expectations of their parents, of their relationships, even their own ideas of what they feel like they're expected to do, as opposed to what do I actually want to do in life? What do I actually enjoy? What are things that give me energy? What are areas of life that I want to pursue? And I think the kind of idea of the enslavement, it's almost like a mental enslavement of the expectations that medical culture and the process of professionalism and going into professional school does to you, right? But, and I know this personally, and what you said really spoke to me, because I also had to have my own personal breakout period when I started podcasting, right? And when I started to build out something, right? And so I'm curious, when did that switch for you, where you're like, I'm done. I need to do me. I need to do something for myself. What was that moment, or where did that kind of switch for you?
Yeah, I would say there were multiple pieces, right, that were building up. Then I would say it was at the end of 2019. That's when I was working full time plus, right? Because I had these other hats that I mentioned twice.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I was starting new clinics in the evening, and I was starting my own private practice on Friday. So I smushed all that work to Monday to Thursday. And yes, it's in a way you could say it was self-imposed, but then it accelerated my awareness of wait, this is not good. If this keeps going, I'm not only am I not going to where I want to go, I'm going further away from really what it is I went to medicine for. And there were years of work I did internally, studying self-awareness and typology and all these things. And it finally added up and said, I don't know if it was a moment or a process, but I said, I think November 2019, by X date, which was July 2020, I am no longer going to be working for corporate clinical medicine. I'm not going to have everything figured out, but it's time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, just like you said, it kind of built up over time. You're doing your own personal reflection and studies, and we all have to hit that point. And I think it's really powerful. Like you said, you decided on a date and you said, I've had enough of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so many times, unfortunately, we as physicians, there's like a personality type. We oblige, we're givers. But our issue, I think, as givers, is the defense of protecting ourselves and giving ourselves space and what's good for us. And I think it's just it's such an important part of your journey to say, you know what, like, that's it. I'm creating this wall. I'm done. And I'm ready to build out my practice. I'm ready to build out my thing. So now let's dig in a little bit further. You wrote a book about this, right? Achieving Physician Freedom. And again, I love the title. I think it's great. What does it take to achieve freedom as a physician? What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So a lot of I would say, so I'm re-listening to this book. I re-listened to this book multiple times. Napoleon Hill. And it's not his more well-known, right? Think and Grow Rich. It's the Outwitting the Devil. And in it, he talks about having a definitive purpose and plan. And as doctors, we are not taught how to have that for our life. It's how to do a history, do an exam, assessment, and plan, which is what you need for your job. But it's not taught to us to soul searching in our work and be aware of what's going on, to get what's us, right? What's individually, authentically meaningful and impactful for us. And like you said, it's in a way that was snuffed out. I know that sounds really terrible, but in a way, because you have to inculcate this physician persona. And unfortunately, right now, it's not paired with some sort of individual growth. Because if you have both, that'd be great. But we don't. So what the book generally says is that you need to actually think about it, and not if you just let things happen, you are deciding to let other people's choices basically lead your life. And so the first thing I write in the book, right, the first step is to realize that yes, but we're all going to die, right? And I have people do this exercise. Write out your own eulogy or obituary, the way your life is going right now. And then write another one in which you write your ideal life. If those two are the same, that's awesome. But then I don't think they are the happiest stock already. So, and then I say it helps them wake them up. Oh wait, there's actually this difference, and I didn't want to see it because that cognitive dissonance is so uncomfortable. And who else is responsible but you, right? So it's me, it's my life. And if I don't choose to do what's better for me and the people around me, someone else's decision will become mine. And then what?
Yeah. I like that exercise a lot. So like, I'm going to get really clear on this. So I'm right now, if I wanted to do the exercise, I'd write my eulogy as if whatever pathway I'm taking, I'm writing it now, versus a different pathway where I succeeded or went for the things I wanted to in life. And then you compare those eulogies. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Having that hindsight lets you see, let's say I was wearing my hats, all my hats, and hey, great. Oh, he was the best DIO ever. He was the best program director ever. He was the best quality improvement person ever. I mean, yeah, those are great, but it's not really what I'm about. And it might make a lot of other people happy, which is great, but why not make yourself and people happy too? It's possible, right? It's I think doctors need to know that. It's not a win-lose, right? We can all win. It's if you're really doing what you love and helping people with that.
Yeah, I love what you said. I called it something else mentally. I've come up with my own framework around this. I've called it stacking in my head. So you want to stack. The way I look at it is you want to stack what you find authentically true for your life and what makes you happy and what makes you joyous and all those things, what gives you energy, and making sure that you take care of yourself, not necessarily first, but at least carve or shift into a position where now what you're doing is providing you energy. So then as you're happier and more fulfilled, you give from that full cup, right? And then you're able to give from a place of energy as opposed to a space of lack, burnout, exhaustion, and all of those things, right? So have the eulogy exercise I really like. Have you found any other sort of analogies or exercises, or what conversations do you have with other individuals around starting to cultivate that inner fulfillment?
Yeah, and the overarching theme is that it's hard because it's so uncomfortable. It's realizing, oh, whoops, that there's something that's not right, and there's something that needs to be different. And that's the what I said before about being board certified. As a physician and to others, it shows your credential. This person did all this work. They're great. But it also just means this person had met the same qualifications as this same other person. And each of us are not replaceable, right? But the school system and the residency training, to some extent, is to make sure you're all up to snuff, to make sure you're able to do the same things. But in a way that makes you replaceable, but we're not. So again, there's that dissonance between, hey, I'm one of a kind. I'm the first me ever. And am I going to not be me? Definitely the dying approach helps because I come from an existential philosophy background, and that's what I studied in
Mm-hmm.
undergrad, right? And well, this is a little bit more more niche, but I'll mention it. So
Yeah,
Friedrich Nietzsche, right? He is a he's pretty well known. It's hard to
of
not know
course.
who doesn't know
Well,
Nietzsche.
well-known philosopher,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. And one of his concepts is the eternal recurrence. It sounds fancy, but all it means that imagine whatever you're doing right now, and then you die, time ends, and then time starts over. It's a mental exercise. That means when it comes to this moment again, you're going to do the exact same thing with the exact same outcome. And that's the mental exercise. Can you imagine yourself making the same sort of action with the same sort of result over and over and over and over again? It just lets you realize, oh man, I maybe I should think again about what I'm doing right now. So that's kind of his existentialism in a nutshell. It's really what matters to you. Are you doing something that matters to you or not, or
Yeah.
even something that's the opposite of what matters to you, which is, I would say, a big component of the burnout, which everybody talks
Yeah.
about.
Well, it kind of reminds me, right? Like we're all kind of, I hate to say it like this, but there's definitely like there is a game-like quality to life. And is this the game you want to keep playing? Like, do you want to keep running this game, or do you realize maybe I want to step out of this maze and do something else, right? And I think, often, it's an analogy, but oftentimes there's a point where you should have said enough, and your, whatever you want to call it, your soul, your spirit, your inner self knows that you've had enough. It's crying. You're exhausted. You're waking up. You're depressed. You're not looking forward to waking up in the morning. You're not looking forward to your work. You're getting burnt out. Maybe you're, showing symptoms of getting angry, irritable, whatever. So you know it, and yet you still haven't taken that next step to look at your life, to reflect and say, wait, maybe I need to be changing something here. And change is obviously very hard, but how long are you going to keep playing this same game? And I love that idea with Nietzsche of the recurring pattern here, because who knows what happens when we die? That's a longer discussion. We could have a whole existential conversation. I love this. By the way, I love talking about this stuff. So you're in you're in the right crowd here. But with all of that being said, at the end of the day, I wouldn't say just change, because the conversation we're having is not simple changes. What we're almost talking about is a philosophical or internal change, and these types of changes can be very difficult, right? So the change that goes from being a teenager to an adult, or the change, like it's a metamorphosis in a way and a transformation of your character, and that change, the change we're talking about, is very hard. It's not just these are very difficult decisions that you meet at different times. Like, for example, the decision with you to transition from regular what we'd say normal clinical care to a direct primary care practice, right? That is a big shift. I'm curious how that change has altered your perspective on practice, and how that's either made you more fulfilled. Like, what was that change like for you?
Yeah, so I went into medicine thinking, oh, I'm just gonna be to do the doctor stuff, and I'll get paid, and that's the end of the day. That'll be great. But I realized there are so many people in between me and the patient, and it's not like I wanted to spend all this time. Oh, I have to learn business entities and find a malpractice carrier, but I did it to get to where I wanted to get to. And it's so in the other part of the book, I guess going back to the book, is once I or anyone decides this is kind of where I want to go, all you really need to know is finding out what the next step is, right? If I want to find out how to start a private practice, I just have to, I don't know, Google it, ask someone, look it up. It doesn't. You don't have to say, "Oh, the next day I'm gonna
Is it
reflect."
really that easy?
Yes and no, because every time you do the next step, you just find out what the next step is. If you look 10,000 steps ahead, you go. But then if you all you have is today, and right now is, hey, what can I do today to get me closer to that vision, dream, goal, whatever it may be. And for me, it was, I want this kind of practice. It's not going to happen overnight or a year or maybe even 3-5 years. But all I knew was I need to come up with a name for my practice, right? It's something it's the simple things add up to what's hard. Like, I always, for physicians, I give the physician equivalent, right? When I was first on night float, the nurse calls, oh, this person's Haldol order or Tylenol order is whatever missing or it needs to be renewed. And I we'll look up, but what's the dose for Tylenol? But after you write the dose for Tylenol, I don't know, 5-10 times, it's okay. And then you move on to a little bit more complicated thing that you can move through. So we've all done it, but we just make things more complicated because people can. It's just one of the gifts we have, right?
Well, it's scary. I mean, the change you're talking about, and it's I kind of like the change I went through with starting the podcast, which is like, I'm going to a different level. I'm going to choose to do something that most people don't do, right? And I'm extending my head out to this other thing. It's very anti the process that we went through. The whole process we went through has been following the bookwork, doing all the, doing everything right. Don't have any marks on your record. Don't be a delinquent. Constantly get good grades, and now all of a sudden you're risking that next step of maybe going to that direct, primary care practice or whatever. So I do think I don't think we've ever exposed ourselves in that way. So if you've never done that, it can be really challenging. Did you have a mentor or anyone that you've been following to help you with this?
Yeah, I definitely had multiple non-business entrepreneur mentors, my program director. They were all great helps. But it was really the beginning of 2020 when I decided, hey, I got to change something. I started looking, right, for actual people to call. I'm great at signing up for online courses and finishing a lot, but not all of them. and I signed up for a lot of Dr. Mike Woming's Bootstrap MD and learning a lot of those things. And I also signed up for the Tony Robbins Dean Graziosi program. I forgot what it was called. And Ramit Sethi.
KBB one?
Yeah, KBB. And Ramit Sethi's the I Will Teach You to Be Rich Guys. It was called Zero to Launch, but he changed it to
his book
Earnable.
is great.
Yeah.
It's a very good financial book.
And then I realized, I can kind of do this all on my own. It will just take me a long time because I was just afraid of asking for help. And then actually one of your recent guests, Dr. Christopher Liu, I forget. Oh, he was doing an interview with Dr. Mike Woming, almost kind of like just like this. And said, oh, what is your blah, blah, blah? Oh, I do this, this, this. I said, let me look him up. He says, oh, I have a coaching call available. I called him up, and then it was not something I ever did or found comfortable. But I said to myself, what's going to happen if I don't? I'm just not going to move ahead. And so I called him, and then I learned from him. And then that led out to reaching out to more people. I was mentored by Dr. Mike Woming and asked a lot of people online, different Facebook groups. I just asked them, what blah, blah, blah do you use? Or which one of this do you use? And even now I have another coach that kind of is leading me through the business world. So definitely networking, asking, right?
Yeah.
As a student, as an intern, we're used to, hopefully we were used to asking things. But as an attending, even if you've never done business stuff, you're almost like a business student again. You have to be a business intern. So you need your business senior resident and your business attending.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I look at it.
There's definitely a entire world of information. But the one thing I wanted to point out with what you said, which I think was great, is it sounds like you were ready. It sounded like mentally you'd had enough, there was enough percolating in here where you're like, I'm done. And it sounded like you're ready. Like the one thing I want to highlight for people listening is, if there's enough, like as you're listening, because this is going to be on the podcast, this is, you know, I know we're doing it live right now, but this is also going to be for my podcast listeners. If you're listening to this right now and you feel like, I'm done, I've had enough of this lifestyle, I'm ready for this change, I want to really point out that when you're actually ready, the information is here. Mm-hmm. You literally could message me, you can message Dr. Francis Yu, you can message this network. None of us are trying to hide in a corner. We're all looking, we're all people that like to help people. You know, there's nothing here. A lot of people, I feel like, create this barrier in their head that it's difficult to start something new, to build a business, to do whatever. But you just said it. You decided, you listened to the interview, you just looked a couple steps further. You saw that Dr. Christopher Liu had like his course or had his coaching. You reached out. I'm sure you reached out to a lot of other people too, but you, through the sort of weaving process, right? You're here. You're on this episode. You've built out your DPC practice. You know, you're doing this process. You've written 2 books. I saw the COVID book that you wrote as well. You're doing the process, right? And so again, I like to give a little clap because I think, you know, you've built out your way, and that allows other people to build out their way. So I think that's great. What do you think about that?
I have one related and one not related comment. The unrelated comment first is just shorter. One of the reasons I reached out to Christopher Liu was our last names are very similar, like Liu and Yu, and Dr. Mike Wu Ming, right? So Wu, Liu, Yu. And even the last time I spoke with Mike Wu Ming, he said, hey, maybe we should do something together. Because I said, hey, I was thinking the exact same thing. Anyway, so back to your comment. I 100% agree. The thing that I want people to know is that, though, it has to be percolating. If where you are, if your next step is literally do what I'm doing now, that is your next step. It doesn't mean, oh, you need to go network right now and do this right now. That may come. Or maybe your current job is what's fulfilling to you, right? Can't tell someone, oh, leave that job or go for a non-clinical career or fire so you can retire early. What works for you is what works for you. If you say, oh, I'm going to save this amount of money by working this amount of hours on my current job, great, that's your next step. But the key point is that there is this self-appointed conscious decision. Oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do next. And I think that's the next point that I can make is you have a choice, right? And it's when we realize we have a choice that you can stop and say, oh wait, it's whoa, it's almost like Matrix, right? You can, oh wait, yeah. I can actually see what's going on in myself. And that's really ultimately, I would say, the only thing, well, not only thing, most important thing that's important is being aware of where you are, who you are, and what's going on. Yeah. And then realizing your choice, you can choose. I mean, a lot of choices may be bad, but you can still choose. Or you can decide, you know what, I'm going to do this thing that no one thought even was a choice. But I'm going to still be responsible because it's going to change my life to whatever it may be. Now, yeah, so that's kind of another point is we tend to hold ourselves in thinking, oh, we only have this choice, this choice, this choice. One of my favorite, and I'm kind of on a roll here, but one of my favorite stories is Dr. Netter, right? I don't know about now, but when I was a medical student, everybody knew Dr.
Yeah,
Frank Netter.
they're still using Netter's
Oh, okay.
anatomy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look at his biography, I mean, I looked at Wikipedia, but I tried to find other sources. But essentially, he liked art before medicine. And he said, oh, and then he kind of went into medicine just because of different circumstances, influences. And then he still later said, I kind of still want to draw stuff. So he started drawing stuff, and people like this art. And then someone wanted to buy his set of drawings. I'm going to make up the number because I don't remember. He thought they were going to buy the entire set of, let's say, 5 drawings for $500. He was paid $500 for each drawing. And he said, okay, I love drawing. I love art. I love anatomy. I don't know if you love anatomy, but I'm going to do this. It's making me money and I'm happy doing it, right? And I loved how he was able to use his interest and his medical background, right? He leveraged both. And I hope he was happy because he drew plenty of medical art and influenced how many physicians, right? It's who doesn't know that name? Maybe one day we'll all go to.
Well, his drawings are beautiful. I mean, and you really do get to understand the anatomy through what was his authentic skill.
Yeah, and he decided, do something that I get paid for and I love, and I get to use my medical degree versus practicing in a way that I don't want to. Yeah. So I really like his story because it's so simple and everybody knows him. So yeah.
Well, it's a very powerful example, and it kind of points back to what you were alluding to a little bit earlier, which is when we have these big choices or decisions or things that we can make, you have to start to have, like you're talking about the matrix, you have to develop your awareness.
Yeah.
So at some point with Netter, I would imagine he'd had a switch where he had an awareness. He was like, wait a second, I'm pretty good at this thing. Wait a second. People are buying this thing. Maybe I can use what I know and make a lot more of this. And now we all know a Netter's anatomy book. So I think that's just a really powerful thing. And look, he had a choice. He didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
He could have stopped. He could have continued medical school and medical training and all that stuff and never drawn another more, had his own personal drawings and whatever. But, so I think it's a good illustration of that piece of letting it come to you when it comes and taking advantage of it when it arrives.
And one other thing I would add is that, and now see how many people we influenced. And in your shoes, your listener, viewer, what if by not pursuing your best authentic self, you're actually preventing others from benefiting from what you can offer? So that's another lesson from his story.
Yeah, that's now we're talking about like an existential crisis here if we don't fulfill our ultimate being, right? It's a great question. Look, I love philosophical conversation. I could do this all day. For the sake of time, Dr. Yu, I've asked you a lot of questions. Was there anything during this conversation, that you wanted to make sure you imparted to the listeners?
Yeah. So, like I said before, but I want to reiterate, is that physicians are taught how to be physicians, but are not taught how to be themselves. A lot of the solutions to wellness, burnout is do this program or leave your situation. I mean, maybe that's helpful, or change the system. Okay, that's great. But what I want to emphasize is, as an individual, you are you and no one else. And the solution for you is you being your best self. And all these solutions and options, they're there, but really it's there for you, right? You're not there to chase down all these options. It's to, I'm getting existential again, but yeah. So learn yourself, and that's hard because we weren't taught how to. But there are resources for that too, and yeah. So that's the main thing I wanted to reiterate.
No, it's great. I mean, look, I'm 100% with you. Learn thyself, understand thyself, right? And so you can then use your knowing to then take advantage of life in the way you choose, as opposed to the system, the impressions of others, and all these people coming at you, trying to control your life. And I think ultimately that's what we're all looking for, is that autonomy and that control. So I think, you bring up a fantastic point. Dr. Yu, how do people find out about you? Where can they reach you?
Yeah, so on social media, everything is Dr. Francis Yu, so DrFrancisYoo. My Facebook is my main living ground. That's where I messaged you, and this is where I am. Either my profile page, you can friend me. My page, Dr. Francis Yu. My Facebook group, Physician Freedom, Living Your Authentic Physician Life. You can email me, drfrancisu@gmail.com. And the website that's actually being built right now, will be up soon, is drfrancisu.com.
Amazing. So we'll have all of those links in our show notes. Dr. Yu, thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to talking to you again. And everyone, thank you so much for watching and listening to the Happy Doc podcast. Take care.